You're listening to the Jim Boy Star Podcast, episode 104, titled Dragon Quest V The Podcast, Part 1, guest starring Kenshin 1913. Welcome everyone, this is Jim from the Jim Boy Star Podcast, and it's time to talk about more Dragon Quest. I thought I was going to be finished with Dragon Warrior 4 Life, but as it turns out, I decided to do some more. I have Kenshin 1913, aka Pete here. How are you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
All right. I mean, this is the first real episode under a different recording format, so I'm kind of like, oh, I hope this comes out well, audio-wise. And I will warn people right now, probably for the next month or two, you might hear like a lot of various sounding audio recordings because I'm trying different things leading into the debut of now that's what I call podcasting, becoming a bi-weekly show. That's the plan right now. So please bear with me for the next month or so if sounds are different on every episode. Alright. Why are we doing Dragon Quest V? Why don't you tell the people?
Well, honestly, I asked if we were going to do Dragon Quest V back when we were starting to do the various parts, and I think the reason why we're doing it is because it is a heck of a game, and it's pretty much a totally different type of storytelling than even the other games where they had the chapters, and this one is done in 3 generations and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
Right, and it's also, from what I gather, your favorite Dragon Quest game, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yes. So I thought about it and I was like, yeah, you did mine when we did the Dragon Warrior 4 Life series, and I was like, yeah, it's the next one anyway, so let's just do it. And we're gonna break this one into 3 parts, and we're gonna do it based on generation. That's the plan right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know. Again, a lot of experimentation on my side with various recording things or whatnot. I don't know if the next episode is going to be played directly after this one, but we will do all 3 of them eventually. Again, it's a lot of trial and error right now in my life.
Right.
So why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about the background of this game?
Right. So this game basically was the first Dragon Quest game on the Super Famicom, which is the Super Nintendo in Japan, and it came out in 1992. Now, this game was planned on being brought to America, but I believe something happened with the translation where they didn't get a chance to, or it was going to be coming out, and then they kind of scrapped it because Square, which is Square Enix now, but they pretty much left the United States. And they pretty much, Enix. I'm sorry, Enix. They left the United States, and the whole corporate headquarters left. So they didn't bring it out. So it took many years later until 2008, from 92 to 2008, until the North American people could actually play this game for the first time. So this game, like I mentioned, is an interesting story on how they broke it up into 3 generations of. You're playing as this one character, and you're going through 3 generations of one family in order to pretty much rescue your mother and save the world. Mm-hmm. And this game came out for the Super Famicom, the PlayStation 2, and the DS, and also the Android and mobile devices and iOS and all that stuff. So it is out on many different platforms now.
Yeah, it is interesting because I remember when playing the Dragon Warrior / Quest series that I definitely didn't play this one after 4 because it wasn't available. I think the next Dragon Warrior I would play is 7 because that was the next one that came out, at least in the States.
Right.
So, and it should be noted as well, you have recently done, by the time this airs, you probably finished it, but it's still recent, a Let's Play on this game for the for the phone, I believe.
Yes, I did one for the Super Nintendo, and I did one for the Android and iOS because that version and the Nintendo DS are very similar. So I figured I'd just do it on the newest version, the Android.
Right. Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's start. Let's get right into the plot.
All right, so this game starts off, you're a little boy, and the opening scene is pretty much this guy. He's a king. He's walking around, he's waiting, and finally his wife has a child. They name the child, and that child is you. So then you wake up and you're on the boat and you're with this guy. His name is Papas, or in the new versions it's called Pancrance. And he kind of tells you, what were you having a dream or whatever? And he tells you to explore the ship. You go out into the ship. This is like a really amazing cutscene because there's like the sun shining all of a sudden, and then you're walking around. And so when the ship finally gets to port, you get off, and depending on what version you're playing, you'll meet these girls.
Mhm.
And there's these two girls that you'll meet, or you won't meet a girl, whatever. But and it's kind of like an introduction into some of the other characters for later. So you get off this ship and you're gonna travel. You're basically traveling with your father, Pancrance, and you're traveling around the world. So from the port, you leave and you head to your hometown, which is called it's called Santa Rosa or Wheelbrook in the remakes. And pretty much there, your dad is searching for something. You're not exactly sure what he's searching for, but you meet this girl. Her name is Bianca, and you guys are reading a story together. And eventually she leaves, and you can't progress with the story because her and her mother are waiting for like a medicine guy,
Mhm.
and you found out that the medicine guy went into the cave that is in this town. So you pretty much try to get your dad to go. He doesn't go, so you got to go do it. And when you go in there, you get that this is like the first dungeon where you fight all different types of monsters, and you find this guy, and he makes the medicine for Bianca, and then you travel with your father to Bianca's town, which is called Wheelbrook. Oh no, not Wheelbrook, Roundbeck.
Mhm.
And there you pretty much you heal up Bianca's dad because he's kind of like a sickly kind of dude, so he needs like medicine and whatnot. And there, you're hanging out with while the grown-ups are talking and everything. This is why I really like this chapter, by the way, because because you're pretty much like a 6-year-old boy.
Right. You
And
can't read or anything.
no, you can't. And Bianca is just a little older than you. She's actually 8 years old. So I love this chapter because it totally is relatable to being like a little kid in the essence of like you go on adventures and do all this cool stuff. So anyways, while the grown-ups are talking or whatever, they're like, "Hey, why don't you go explore the town?" So you come across these two kids who are bullying this little saber cat.
Mhm.
And Bianca, she loves animals, so she's like, "Hey, stop bullying that cat. We want that cat." And they're like, "Okay, the only way that you're gonna get this cat is that you have to beat these ghosts up in this haunted castle."
Right.
So they decide to do that. The hero and Bianca decide to do that, and
Let's take a quick pause because I want to talk about the fact that I don't know why you as a kid are able to buy weapons.
right.
I thought that was very strange. And also, your father doesn't really care what you're doing. In your description you had mentioned about how they would be going to caves, or you go into a cave and you rescue that guy.
Hmm.
Like, where is your father doing all of that? I forgot. Where is he doing that?
I believe he's like looking up stuff, and you're trying to tell him like, "Hey, there's a guy caught in the cave." And even Bianca's mother is like, "Oh no, I don't want to bother Pancrance with this stuff." So pretty much you kind of take it upon yourself to go in there. I honestly think he's just kind of researching stuff because it's him and his buddy Sancho that are in this house with you,
Mhm.
and they're pretty much researching something which you actually don't know what that is until much later on.
Right. Now, I don't think you talked. What is Sancho's relationship to you and your father?
I think Sancho at this point you don't really know what his relationship is to his
Okay,
dad,
that's fair.
but he's pretty much like like his right hand man. Like if you think about like Pancrance as, Don Quixote. Sancho is literally Sancho Panza. You know what I mean? I think that's actually where they got the name from.
Mhm.
And he's pretty much helping your dad do whatever. And at this point too, it's another interesting thing to mention that Pancrance is actually the like mayor or elder or whatever, the ruler of the town that you're in of Wheelbrook, which
It
is
def
kind of cool.
but and it definitely doesn't really give you an indication of that either. Like
Not
it's not like
really.
his house is different. It's like or it's not like it's bigger. Like there's
Hmm.
nothing when you think of in Dragon Warrior slash Dragon Quest series of like your leader, usually that something differentiates them from the rest of the town, and I don't feel like anything has done so with him.
Yeah.
By the way, so when you go
Yeah. See,
with
the only thing is that everybody respects.
good.
Oh, go ahead.
No, well, I was
Oh, I
also
was just
gonna.
gonna say every.
Mhm.
No, you go ahead, Jim.
I mean, I want to go to where the fact that when you travel with your father, the difference between your I guess your stats or how much like your combat. I want to talk a little bit about that.
Right, right, right. So, pretty much your dad, he's really badass. He's on like level, I think like 27 or something. You're obviously on level 1. And so whenever you get into a battle, like the one point part where you can see that is like once you leave the port from the very beginning of the game, like again, Pancrance, he's like or Papas, either or, I'll call him either or. But anyways, he's like, "Oh yeah, son, I'm talking with this guy. Go over and play, but don't go too far." So you go outside, you get into a battle, you start fighting some enemies, then Papas comes in, right? And he kicks the shit out of everybody, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's really really good. And so if at any point during that time you get injured or whatever, he'll actually heal you because he has some healing spells. But like, yeah, he's really really strong. And yeah, he's pretty amazing. And he actually is one of the only characters that I know of that doesn't have a weapon that lets you attack twice. Yet he gets to attack twice, anyways, which is pretty cool.
I believe when you get into a battle, I believe his level it says is 27.
Yeah, I think so.
And then can you tell people what the name of Bianca's father is?
Bianca's father, his last name is Whitaker.
Hmm.
And pretty much he runs the inn at that town that they're in. And yeah, he's like a really successful innkeeper, kind of like that guy in the fourth game. I can't remember his name off the top of
Hector.
my head. Yes, Hector, who runs an inn, pretty
Yeah.
much like him. Because a lot of
Hector
people,
Hector slash Hank Hoffman Jr.
yes, yeah, because a lot of people come from all around to learn how to be like a good innkeeper from him.
Hmm.
Because he has one of the biggest ones in the world.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, so no, yeah, it's Mr. Whitaker, but he has a first name. Do you remember what his first name is? Or what I
Uh,
think it is, at least.
I don't know. I don't
Isn't
remember.
it Whitey?
Oh yes, Whitey Whitaker.
How
Yes.
weird is that there's someone in this game whose first name is Whitey?
Yeah, it is. That is kind of weird. Why they would name him that?
It's
Like
almost
that.
as weird as in the latest Dragon Quest VII. Oh, what's the one? They changed the hero's father's name.
Yeah,
Um,
it was like Baronico, and now it's I forget what his name is.
is it?
Uh,
Oh God, I just oh fuck. It begins with a P, doesn't it?
yeah. Let me look it up.
Look it up real quick, because we need. I just want to have a quick. Because we talked about Dragon Quest VII a couple of times when we were doing the Dragon Warrior 4 show. What is it? What's his last name again?
Pollock.
Oh, that's right.
Pollock.
Well,
Pollock.
you
Yeah.
say Pollock, but see, I looked at that the first time, and I read it as Pollock.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
100% people are going to read it like that because Pol is Poll and
Mhm.
Lock Lock, and
Mhm.
that's not a great like first name.
Right.
It's
Right. Right.
offensive to some people.
Yeah. I hear.
I feel like that and Whitey are like, what is going on here?
Mhm.
All right, but okay, so we're gonna go to this haunted house now, or the haunted
Mhm.
whatever. It's a castle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So what ends up happening is Papa's kind of gets like a little ill. They're like they talk to him. They're like, oh, you know what? You saved, you brought the medicine. You did this good thing. How about you guys take a rest, right?
Mm.
So in the middle of the night, you're both sleeping. Bianca comes and gets you, and this is when you do like this cool night adventure kind of sneaky thing. So at this point, more than likely, you are not ready to go into that castle yet.
Right.
So what ends up happening is, you fight around, and you pretty much like level up, get buy your equipment or whatever. But the reason why you can do that is because if you like spend the night and then you're like, okay, I gotta rest up, and because one of the shops is closed at night,
Mm.
so when you wake up, you find out that your dad actually caught the cold that Whitey had. So
Mm.
it's like that's the reason why you have to stay. Because originally I was like, why are we staying? And then
Right. Yeah.
then I, and then I talked to him, and he's like, oh, okay, he's sick. He's sick.
Right. And he'll always be
So
sick
then
until you go to this place.
exactly. It's like you got the flu or something.
Mm.
So once you're ready to go to the tower, you pretty much head there. It's to the northwest, and when you go in, you find out that the king and the queen there want you to get rid of the ghosts that are there, and so they kind of help you go through. And you notice there's all these ghosts, and there's lightning and all kinds of scary stuff, and you have to get this torch, which is kind of like a throwback item to the original Dragon Quest, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And you have to use that item in order to like gain access past the ghost, because if you have that light on, then the ghosts disappear. So you find out that monsters have overtaken the castle, and they're pretty much making the ghosts like stay alive, because they can't rest until like the monsters are gone. So you go and you find the head of the monsters, and you pretty much fight him and defeat him, of course. And he pretty much gives the whole like, oh, we were just looking for a place to, me and these monsters, we were just looking for a place to be. If you let me go, we'll never trouble anyone again. And it's like another but thou must kind of moment.
Yeah.
So you have to let him go, and then you meet the king and the queen, and they're like, oh, thank you for saving us. What is it? Thank you for saving us. Now we can rest. So then what ends up happening is you're up in this tower, or you're up on top where the two grave sites are, and then all of a sudden this ball comes out of nowhere, and they give you the ball, and they're like, here's the ball.
Mm.
And so after that, you leave the castle, and a couple of things that are interesting in there that I didn't mention was like in the very beginning when you get there, they're like buried alive, sort of. You end up in these tombs, and you got to get out. And then there's these statues that are following you. It's all the classic like ghost
Sure.
things,
Absolutely.
And so once you leave, obviously, just like classic Dragon Quest, the story of this like spreads through the town like wildfire, and you save the cat, because that's the main thing. That's
That's
the
the whole
reason
reason you're there. Yeah.
exactly. So we save the cat, and at this point you can name him. And originally in the Super Nintendo version, you can call him Barongo, but because I don't know if they didn't have enough space or whatever, you can't name him that. It's like his like default name in the new game is Saber. So you get him, and you're gonna leave with your dad, but Bianca's like, "Oh no, I can't go with you." So she wraps a ribbon around the kitty, and now he's your new party member for a little while, which is pretty cool. So as you go back, because he needs to go back to Wheelbrook, we head back there, and if you get attacked while you're outside, he will heal the kid, but he will not heal the cat, which is kind of interesting.
Does
You
the
figure
cat also have stats? What is the cat at?
the cat is at level 1.
Okay, so unlike your father, he doesn't have a preset level.
No, he's always at 27. But he's like I said, really strong. He wears a kilt. That's all he wears. Like there's a point where you can actually look at his the equipment that he has, and he wears a kilt and his sword, and that's it. And I'm like, damn, this guy is badass.
Mm.
So at this point, you get back to your town, hearing about, oh, you saved from the ghosts, you did all this stuff. Your dad's he's pretty proud. So you go up and you go talk to him, and you find out he's doing more research. So he's like, oh, go outside and play. and you hear all these rumors about this guy that's in town, some mysterious looking dude, right?
Hmm.
So you go near the church and you meet this guy. He's wearing this turban and this cape, and he wants to talk to you about something. And he asks if he can look at the ball. So as a kid, you're like, yeah, whatever. You can either say yes or no. You do have to eventually let him look at the ball. It's a butt down must kind of thing.
Right.
So you look at the ball, and he looks at it and he gives it back to you, and pretty much he goes on his way. And so that was kind of like a weird encounter. So you go back to your dad, you kind of talk to him about that stuff, and he's like, okay, that's cool. Go around town, go play or whatever. So as you're going around town, now you're hearing about stuff mysteriously being misplaced, this, that, and the other. And so you go to the inn, and in the inn there's a bar, and you meet this invisible fairy, and her name is Honey, or Bella. I believe her name was Bella in the original, but her name is Honey, and she kind of tells you that she needs help, and the only people who could see her are kids. So she was moving stuff around in the town, misplacing things, so that people would notice that she was there. So she asked you, since you're the only one who can see her, if you can go and help her in the land of the fairies. Which, again, if you heard this as like an adult and a kid was saying, "Oh, we went to the land of the fairies," it's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right. Right. Question
Yeah.
on. So wait. So she was moving things or taking things or whatever to get people to notice her.
Right, so that they would pay it, so that they would be like, "What the hell's going on?" and they would see her. But the thing about it is,
But they
adults,
wouldn't see her.
yeah, adults apparently can't see her at all.
In other words, what I'm trying to get at here is I don't know if I totally understand her end game
No,
by
I don't
doing
get it
this.
either.
Okay.
I mean, she wants someone to notice her, but I don't know if she knows that fairy. I guess in this world, fairies are not visible to older people or
Or is she
whatever.
trying to get the one kid in town to
Right,
try to notice her?
right. Maybe that's it, and then maybe he would like tell her dad or whatever.
Well,
Tell
perhaps
his
a
dad.
better plan would have been then to do this in a town that had maybe more than one kid. In
Right,
fact,
right, right.
we know that there's at least one other place that has two kids in it that's not that far away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we tell the fairy that we're gonna help her, and we end up going back to our house and then going to the basement where pretty much we go to the land of the fairies, which is kind of an interesting area because at this point it's all cold, it's all ice. It's pretty much always winter. And if you talk to some of the town people before then, they would kind of say how like it's hard to grow crops because it seems like it's never getting warm. It's always kind of cold.
Mm,
So that kind of gives a hint that something's going wrong there.
right.
So you get up there and you talk to, I believe her name is
I
the
don't.
leader of the leader of the fairies. I forget her name off the top of my. I think her name is Treacle in this
Yeah, that
game,
sounds right. Yeah, that definitely sounds right.
and
It's
she
like,
pretty much.
yeah, like,
I'll go ahead.
well, it's like Treacle, I believe.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
how you say it.
Treacle.
I mean, to be honest with you, overall, I'm not a huge fan of the fairy storyline compared to the haunted castle storyline, but
Hmm.
there is one shining star, which I'm sure you'll get to in just a little bit. But yeah, bottom line lesson to be learned here is winter is terrible and should not be all year.
Right. Yes. And so,
I'd be so mad if there was snow all year round where I
oh yeah,
lived.
oh
I
yeah.
hate snow.
Yeah, I like it to a point, but then after a while, I'm like, yeah, go away. I need some. I need some spring here,
Right,
some sun and warmth.
right.
Right. So we get to here. We meet the queen of the fairies. She pretty much says that someone stole her flute, the flute of spring, and she needs you to get it back. And so she says that you should probably go talk to the dwarves because the dwarf pretty much stole the flute. And so you head to oh no, yeah, okay. She said that because the dwarf stole the flute. I'm just trying to remember
Sure.
exactly. So then from there you head over to a cave to the west where dwarves live, and you find out that there's this old dwarf guy who lives there, and he's like, yeah, back in the day, the last queen, the last leader of the fairies, she pretty much badmouthed me and banished me to this place. And his grandson pretty much was pissed about that and stole the flute.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he's like, the only way that you're going to get to the place where he's at is you got to get this book called the Book of Secret Doors or whatever. And so you have to head down to the book. You have to head down through the cave, and you get this book. And this thing pretty much takes the place of the thief's key, in the essence of like it's not really an item.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much something that he reads. Granted, at this point the kid can't read. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention is pretty much when you're going through this whole fairy side quest or story, you have you the hero, you have your cat Barongo, and you have Honey. She ends up coming with you, and she's decent. I mean, she could do a little healing, and a little bit of attack spells. She's all right, but you can't control her, so that's one of the bad things about her.
Mm-hmm. How would you say that she ranks as far as not being able to control her, but she actually helps you? Like, you know how, again, going back to Dragon Warrior 4, when he always tries to cast
Right.
Beat. Like, does she do anything like that?
No, actually, her AI isn't too bad, because when you're low on HP, over half, I think she heals you, and if you need if you're trying to do something like cast Sap or whatever, she'll do that too to lower the enemy's defense. So that ends up working pretty well. She's not bad. I mean, compared to Kirill, she is much better.
Right.
I think they really, by this time, they had the AI down. Thank God.
Yeah.
So you get this scroll or whatever. It's pretty much the thief's key, and you now know how to open pretty much any locked door or any simple locked door. So when you head back up, he pretty much tells you that his grandson, his name is Zaylee or Dwight. I think it's Dwight in the new version.
Yep.
He tells you Dwight is hiding out in the ice palace to the north. So you head over there, you open the door, and then it's one of those sliding ice puzzles where you gotta slide around, and you slide so far, and then you gotta, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
So eventually you get to the top, all right, and you talk to Dwight, and Dwight's like, "Yo, I don't like the fact that they were talking junk about my grandfather," and so he's like, "I got this flute, and you're not getting it back, so you have to." Oh, go ahead.
He is the best character in this thing, in my opinion, in this little story. He's
Yeah.
Dwight the White Dwarf.
Dwight the White Dwarf, yes.
I gotta get you.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. You actually, we could talk about it later, but eventually he'll be one of your buddies. But so you're fighting him, you beat him, right? He's not that hard, and then all of a sudden, this crazy lady appears behind him, and she's the Queen of Winter, and she's kind of like
Elsa.
What is it? No, a little bit more like I don't know if you remember the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. There was that one. Yeah, it's kind of like her. So she pretty much tricked Dwight to get the flute for her. So then you have to take her on, and actually this battle is probably one of the hardest battles in the first generation, because she can do a spell that hits everybody, and you might not have enough healing, so you got to fight her, and eventually you beat her, and you get back you get back the flute, and Dwight pretty much is like, you know what, I've seen the error of my ways. I'll take it back, because I guess he doesn't know that there's a new ruler there. So, and that new ruler is much nicer than the old one. So eventually she does take back the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
So you head back to the fairy castle. She blows the flute. It turns everything into spring, and you disappear back into the real world.
Right.
And now I don't know if it took like a brief moment. I don't think it did, but like if times are different between the fairy world or whatever.
Well,
but
yeah, you would think that your father would be like, "Oh, where's my son? He's been gone for about 3 days now."
Right. So if the one thing is, if you do end up resting, you'll end up back in the real world. But then you'll talk to like Papas or Sancho, and they'll be like, "Oh no, go play," because he's pretty much what you find out is that Papas did get a letter from another castle I'll get into a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So he got that, and he's kind of like trying to figure out something. So during this whole time, he's just kind of sitting there him and Sancho are trying to figure out like what are they gonna do. So they're not really paying attention to you while you go off and you go fight the whole fairy thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Mhm.
So after you're done with that, you find out your dad left, and you're like, what the hell? And so you go, yeah, because Sancho's like, you gotta go catch up with him because he's leaving to go to this next town, and it's called Cogburg or Coburg. I like to call it Reinhardt because Reinhardt was the original name, and Reinhardt honestly
Reinhardt's a
sounds.
better. Yeah, I think that's a better name too. I
Yeah,
will say this: so far of the different changes, I feel like they like for names and whatnot compared to the older one. I'm not as mad so far about the new name changes. They
no,
seem
the
to be
new
doing okay with this. The only one I might, well, it's not even a new. No, it's not a new name change. I don't think is the guy that you rescue from when you're the kid that you rescue to get for him to make the medicine. I think
right,
I was a little upset that I believe his name was Rockefeller. I was like,
right.
oh God, because why? Because he was under a rock. And but other than
Mm-hmm.
that, they've been okay. I'm okay with like Barongo being Saber and this other one that you just said. So far, they're doing okay. I'm not
Yeah.
mad about any of the name changes right now.
Yeah, no, I think for the most part they're not bad. Some of them I kind of wish that they kept the same, but I mean
Sure.
overall it's not too bad. So you're chasing down your dad and you find out that he's at the church, kind of like doing his whole praying thing for a good journey. And so you follow him and you both head off to this new area called Cogburg yeah, I'm just gonna call it Cogburg.
Okay.
Anyways, you get there, you have an official summons from the king there, and you head over there, and during that you have like a little moment of like connection with you and your dad. You're looking at the river, you're checking it out, and he pretty much tells you, once he's done with this little thing, we're gonna kind of take a break. And
Mm.
if you know anything about any kind of storytelling, you know that that's probably like an indicator of something crazy is going to be happening, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Whenever someone says, "Oh, you know what? After we do this thing, let's settle down. We'll take a break and whatever." Stuff like that always ends up not being too hot.
Mm.
So you head to this castle of Cogburg, and you find out you meet the king, and the king is asking Pancrance pretty much to look after his son because Pancrance is an upright dude, and his son's being kind of a brat. So he's like, if you take him under your your wing, he could grow up and be pretty awesome. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So Pancrance is like, okay, so yeah, so he's like, I got a kid, maybe these two can be friends or whatever. So you go over to meet Prince Harry, and Prince Harry's a little bit of a dick.
Mm.
Like, but as you talk to some of the people in town or in the castle, you find out kind of why he's a dick because like his mom died when he was very young, and then his father, the king, married another woman who had a kid, who they had a kid, and that woman didn't really like him, so she treated him like crap.
Mm.
So so you're talking with him, and he loves doing this thing where he calls it lackey, where it's like you can be his lackey and stuff. So he's a prankster, and so what ends up happening is you're going to look for this thing he calls a lackey badge, and he like disappears.
Right. Now
And
this
you
is just you. Like your father is like not in the room with you when
yes,
all this is happening.
yeah, he's just kind of chilling outside, wait, just because he's hoping that you two will become friends. So at this point, if you go in there, you notice he's missing, then you go and tell your dad. He'll come in here, and then all of a sudden Harry's back there, and it's like, what the hell? So he asks you to do it again. You do it. He's missing. So at this point, you search this area where he was standing. And oh, by the way, his name is Prince Harry. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yeah, you mentioned you said Harry, so
Yeah,
the prince was implied based on
right.
being the king's son.
Right, yeah, Harry or Henry. It doesn't really matter. Henry was what he was originally translated as, but
Not a big difference.
not a huge
it's
difference.
like
Yeah,
a different team that whoever like rechanges the names has come on board for Dragon Quest V because,
right,
like I said, the ones in 4 were ridiculous, and I think, and even to this day, some of the newer ones are ridiculous,
right, right,
like
right.
rough. You know.
Yeah, Yeah, Gabbo and all that stuff from Dragon Quest
Yeah.
Seven. Yeah, but you could change the name, so it's not like you know
Right.
crazy. But anyway, so he disappears. You find out a secret hiding spot. You find him, but then all of a sudden these two dudes come in. They knock you over. They grab the prince and they escape. So you have to run back up to your dad. You tell him, Harry's escaped, and he's like, or Harry's been kidnapped, and he's like, Pancrance is like, holy shit. So he runs off. All right, you can't get him because obviously he's much faster than you. So it's you and your cat, and you kind of have to talk at this point. If you don't know where to go, at this point you got to kind of talk to people, and they're talking to people how like they're talking about like how there's some shady stuff that's going on in this temple to the northeast,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying how like a lot of kids are getting captured and stuff, and there's all kinds of shady stuff going on. So at this point, you kind of gotta infer that that's probably where they went.
Right.
So you head to this cave or like temple or whatever the heck it is, and you see your dad, and he's fighting off all these monsters, and so you meet him, and pretty much you join his group, and around this time you kind of find the people who are responsible for stealing Prince Harry, and they're like, oh yeah, they're gonna sell him to slavery, and we're like, holy crap, selling these kids to slavery. So
Right.
you get over to where Harry is, and you find out a couple things. One, Harry is being like a little bitch, so Pancrance like slaps him and says, you know what? You don't even know what's going on. Like your father, he something's going on with him, and you need to grow up and be a good dude. So what ends up happening is at this point you find out that there's some bad people that are looking for Pancrance, which at this point, and being a little kid, you didn't know this stuff. So all of a sudden these monsters attack, and you have to take Harry, get the hell out of there. So as you're leaving, you get to the entrance, and there's this guy waiting there. His name is Gemma or Laja in the remake. His name is Laja, and he pretty much is like, "Yo, you're not leaving here." And so you try to attack him, and it's one of these battles where you can't win.
Right. Now, I think when I first saw Lodge, I guess I'll call him. He he was working with the people that kidnapped Harry, right?
Right. Yes, he pretty much is the guy who's given the money to the people who
got the
kidnap kids.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So you pretty much can't beat him, and then all of a sudden your dad comes in, and he's like, holy shit, what'd you do to my kid? And so these two other monsters come by, and their names are Kong and Slong. They're pretty much like pawns or whatever. They're like no, they're in the new game. They actually do it pretty cool where they call them all chess pieces. So okay, it's Kong the knight and Slon, he's the rook, right? And then
I don't think I even caught any of that. Then again, I don't know how to play chess.
Right, and Laja, he's actually the bishop or whatever. So pretty much they fight your dad, and your dad kicks their ass.
Right.
Right, he's like, get out of here. I can one hand behind my back, I can beat these guys. So then what Laja does is he pretty much threatens to kill you if your dad doesn't cooperate. So pretty much those guys attack him, and this is like the worst part. They're just pummeling your father, right? And then he's pretty much at death's door. He pretty much is like almost dead. And the last thing he says to you, even though you're knocked out, but you kind of can hear him, he pretty much tells you to look for the whole reason why he was doing this is because he said look for your mother because she's still alive. Because in the beginning of the game there was this part where your dad had the kid, which is you, and then all of a sudden your wife disappears. So he's like, your mother's still alive, look for her. And then all of a sudden Laja pulls out a big old fireball and blows him up. And like, this is crazy. This moment is like crazy. It's like, it's one of the saddest points in the game. And so, he kills your dad, and then he takes Harry and you, and he's like, oh, bring him up to that place. We're going to make them slaves. And then he notices that you have this gold ball, a ball that you had from when you saved the, when you saved the ghost.
Yeah.
right? And he just crushes it, and he's like, and at that point you're like, oh, so what? It's a ball, whatever. What does that have to do with anything? He crushes this ball and gets rid of it, and then he warps them, and they ask him, What are we gonna do with this cat? And it's like, oh, leave it alone. It'll go back to being a wild killing machine later. So the poor cat is there just walking around. You're warped over. You're gonna be made a slave, and for 10 long, horrible years, you and Prince Henry or Harry are pretty much slaves, and that's pretty much the end of the first generation.
Yeah, I mean, I was ready for if only they used the same music. I figured that end part would with all of the your father dying and you getting brought to slavery, they would have played the Tempo theme song.
Yeah, that would have been another theme that would have been perfect for this point.
Yeah, yeah, but you're right. So this is like the end of the first generation. We're not even going to touch the slavery part yet because
No,
that's the beginning of the next episode.
right.
Um, but yeah, so overall, like, what do you would you say that like it's an interesting idea having you control as your main person someone that is so young. I think
Yeah,
it's
I
an
think.
interesting dynamic. Is that the youngest that you control in the Dragon Quest series, at least that I know of?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Like in the other games, usually you're teenagers or some of the characters are a little older. But in this game, it's you pretty much start as a 6-year-old kid, and you pretty much go up till I think you're 20 or something, 26 or something like that.
Right. But like I
Yeah.
said, so like you mentioned, they 10 years in slavery, so he'll now be so wait, he was. What age do you start off as? So what age is he
He
gonna be when we do the second episode?
he will be 16. He started off as 6. Bianca was 8, so he'll be 16.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, 'cause I
Yeah.
don't think I ever put the ages together until just now. All
Right,
right,
right, right. And I'd have to just a quick like
sure.
recap about it. It's like I have to say that this was a pretty cool because it's kind of more of a it's kind of more of a like a I wouldn't say a tutorial, but more of a training thing because as the kid as the first chapter, there's no really way to really like lose. I mean, nothing is super hard. It's kind of like a hey, here's this little. It's kind of a more balanced part right away because
Sure.
like there's a lot of helping that goes along and everything and the thing about it is like it's perfect for being like a little kid. I mean, what you do as a little kid, you save, get rid of ghosts, you help fairies out, you do stuff with slavery. This is all kind of like, well, maybe that not that last part, but that's all like stuff that like
Yeah.
but like that's all stuff that like little kids would think of, you know what I mean? And I think it's cool how they kind of like incorporated that into the first generation.
Yeah, no, definitely, because then you're gonna need some of this information for later on in the game. But again, we'll get to that, when that comes up.
Hmm.
All right, so why don't you tell people where they can find you, and we'll start wrapping things up.
Right. If you go to YouTube and look up Kenshin 1913, you can find me. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. I've got a Patreon site. If you just type in Kenshin 1913, you'll find Patreon, SD, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you can look me up there and find all the different activities that I'm doing.
All right, very good, and thank you everyone for checking this out. We'll be back soon with some more Dragon Quest V. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Jim Boy Star podcast. Please visit the website www.thatspodcasting.com where you can get the latest news on all of the latest upcoming episodes of this show. And you could download the archives of previous episodes, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher for the latest episodes coming right to you right when they're released. You can also follow me at www.twitter.com/JimBoyStar. This is my story, and thank you for being a part of it.